What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So we actually got some very big news that came out this morning. After President Biden's State of the Union address last night, we got a lot of updates from different lawmakers on whether they were pleased with what happened, whether they were expecting something different, or whether this is good news moving forward. Well, we do have one senator that has a plan. And this is Senator Joe Manchin. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because this is the one man that has been holding up the entire Build Back Better Act. Now, some people say that this wasn't going to pass anyway, but this is the one person that publicly came out against it. So I want to address what's currently going on. Now, while Ukraine is dealing with a Russian invasion, there's troops that are and civilians that are dying, their economy is in shambles, and nobody knows when this is going to end or if we're going to see a possible, a bigger war. But this is what has many people here in the U.S. asking, what about us? What about us? Because we keep seeing on the news that lawmakers are requesting an additional, $6 billion to go to Ukraine. But then we also see that lawmakers are asking for the child tax credit payments to be extended, for President Biden to actually fulfill his promises, right? The student loan forgiveness and the $200 per month for Social Security recipients. That's what we're hearing. But we're not seeing really anything as to, is Congress going to pass something for Social Security or for students? As of right now, the answer is no. President Biden didn't even bring up students, okay? Not in the form of debt forgiveness. He didn't even bring up Social Security recipients and the $200 boost that he promised them. But this is why this is so important. Because right now, the federal government seems to be extremely worried about what's going on across the world over in Ukraine, and rightfully so. They should be. It's a big deal. It can definitely impact us here in the U.S., and it already has. But this is why many people want an explanation, and they want to understand what is happening. Why can't we get more here in the U.S.? Well, I want to address that. Because yesterday, President Biden laid out his plan to push Congress to hopefully pass the Build Back Better Act. Now, I say hopefully because there are some pretty good provisions within the Build Back Better Act. There was a lot of stuff that shouldn't be included. But at the same time, what lawmakers promised and what they delivered were two different things. President Biden said that we need to avoid additional inflation, that we have to avoid it. He also says that by passing the Build Back Better Act, it would do just that. He also says that passing the bill would still be fully funded. It would be fully funded, yet many people came out and said no, it wouldn't. He also says that this would provide many benefits to the American people to help fight the rising cost of everything from gas to goods to retail to food, everything. But Senator Joe Manchin believes otherwise. Now, after a lot of back and forth between Senator Joe Manchin and other Democrats over the past few months, Democrats decided they didn't want to listen to Senator Joe Manchin because he wasn't telling them anything that they really wanted to hear. And they knew that if they pushed the original Build Back Better Act, he would just fall in line. It didn't happen. President Biden tried to get on board and he tried to do the negotiating himself. He ultimately got Senator Joe Manchin to come to $1.7 trillion back in December. This is the beginning of December. Well, President Biden didn't take Senator Joe Manchin up on this deal and he ultimately called it off. But this morning, things changed, and here's what happened. Today, we finally got the report that many people have been asking for, and this was the question many people have been asking. What exactly does Senator Joe Manchin want? What does he even want? Because he says one thing, and then weeks or months later, he changes his mind. But the thesis behind the whole thing is, it's always been the same. Let's pay down the national deficit, and let's not increase inflation. Two things. Now, according to Politico this morning, this is what Senator Joe Manchin's demands are. The first thing he wants to do is start with tax reform. This is the very first thing he wants to do, and here's the reason why. He wants to make sure that we are fully funding the bill. So what's the first step you got to do? You have to figure out your budget. If you don't know your budget, you don't know what you can include into the bill. So he says, start with tax reform, and then work on prescription reform to lower costs of prescription drugs. This is key. This is very big, and this is what's going to allow Medicare to actually go and negotiate prices, which guess what? It's going to save money. It's going to save money. It's going to help the American people because they don't have to pay as much, but at the same time, it's going to help us because that means Medicare saves money. So it would just be a benefit all around. He also says, let's use half of the money to fight inflation and debt. So we're going to start with tax reform and prescription drug reform. That's going to mean we have more money. Now let's say we have $800 billion. Guess what? This is where we're going to use half of that money to fight inflation and debt. That's $400 billion. We're going to use the other half. Okay, the other $400 billion or the $800 billion that I'm throwing out. This is just an example. Okay, we don't know for sure, but the expectation is whatever it is, it will be less than $1 trillion. Okay, $800 billion has been thrown out multiple times, and that's the reason why I'm using that number. But according to Senator Joe Manchin, he wants to use half for inflation and debt, the other half for climate and social spending. Now, here's what came from this whole interview and discussion this morning. Senator Joe Manchin made it very clear. We have to start with the bill like this, because he said if we don't know how much money we will have from tax revenue, then how do we know how much we can actually add to the bill? And that's key. He also stated that this is the only way he would even be remotely interested in supporting another budget reconciliation is by doing it this way. And keep in mind, a budget reconciliation simply means that it only needs 51 votes in the Senate. That's it. Simple majority. That means no Republican would have to vote for this. Now, Senator Joe Manchin has been very clear. He wants bipartisanship, but at the same time, if Republicans can't vote, not that they don't want to, but they can't because the midterm elections are coming up, and that's the real issue, well, he understands this. And so a budget reconciliation might be the only option for Democrats at this time. But what we know is Democrats don't have a lot of time to get a deal done before the midterm elections roll up on us. It comes up in November this year. Now, being that Democrats want to use this package to try to get the American voters to vote for them and back on their side, right? Try to get a little bit more momentum behind the Democratic agenda. Many experts believe that this bill would have to pass sometime in May. So we're in March, so that means we have 3 months. 3 months to get this passed. Hopefully that's enough time, but as of right now, we just don't know. Many lawmakers take far too much time to try to get a deal done. Now, one thing that is tough right now is that Senator Joe Manchin is saying that he wants to see that energy is included into this bill. And we know this. We knew climate was going to be included. Climate was the one thing that has bipartisan support. But he's calling for the U.S. to ban oil imports from Russia. Okay, he's part of the, I think it's the Senate Energy Committee. I'm not 100%, I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure he's pretty much the leader of that. But he's calling for the U.S. to ban oil imports from Russia. And this right now he's saying to ramp up domestic energy production, including fossil fuels. Now, with this, he says that we need to provide for the American people. And I want to bring this to your attention because this is key. Banning oil imports from the number 2 or number 3 oil producer in the world would hurt the American people, would hurt a lot of people because prices will go up. So right now, what Senator Joe Manchin is saying is he wants domestic oil, gas, coal production to still be a big part of the mix. And some of this could actually be a deal breaker for many other Democrats as well, because they tried to get rid of some of this. Okay? And so that's why I want to bring this to your attention, because right now, nobody knows what's going to happen. But what I can tell you with absolute certainty is there's still a lot of lawmakers trying to get President Biden to go back on what he's already done, open up the Keystone Pipeline, right? Because that would help bring oil prices back down. So we're going to see what happens. But as of right now, the question is, where do we go from here? Many lawmakers believe that this plan that Senator Joe Manchin has put into place as of this morning, this could be something that they can work with. But the real issue has always been nobody knew what he wanted. He laid out his plan. He said, do this, do this, do this. So if Democrats can do that, we might have a deal fairly soon. But again, big changes are ahead. And as we get more information on what's coming, I promise I'll bring the latest news and updates to you as soon as possible. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.